All right, we are recording. Mark Huberman, welcome to the Terrain Theory podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
Mark, my understanding is that you've been on a whole food, plant-based lifestyle since birth. And I want to know what it was like growing up that way. And how did that philosophy from such an early age shape your relationship to food and health?
Well, it's even a little more extraordinary than being whole food plant-based because, believe it or not, I was raised on raw fruits and vegetables, which is the diet that I was raised on from day one and I stayed that way till I was 32 and a half years old. So not just was I whole food plant-based vegan, but I was a raw foodist for a variety of reasons. And clearly the world was in a very different place in the 1950s. I was born in 1951 than it is today. If you went out to if you were going out to a restaurant, vegan dishes were not an option. If you went to a grocery store, I don't think you'd see salad bars. Even fruits and vegetables were usually a cooler in the back of the store, along with the dairy and the milk and all that. It wasn't quite like it is today, and so it was a very, very different place. And but my parents were pioneers in this way of living, and had some. That my late great father used to say that most people worry about their health until after they've lost it. Don't worry about their health until after they've lost it, and that was the case with my parents. They had some health issues, and they decided to take another approach to regaining their health. And then I come along a couple of years after when they were on this journey, and I had a few health issues shortly after I was born. Long story short, my parents thought that the ideal diet was the Sheltonian diet, the writings of Dr. Herbert Shelton, that what we today call what was called then the natural hygiene diet,
Yep.
what is today the whole food plant-based diet, the whole food plant-based SOS-free diet, salt, oil, sugar-free diet. That's what I've been raised on my whole life. And but it was again very, very different in the 50s. My parents had my father was an organic gardener and who had a compost pile before people even knew what those things were. They had a mom and pop health food store very early on, so they were very health conscious, and I got raised in that world.
How did they get exposed to Shelton's work and this
So
concept of like organic gardening and composting?
so interesting. My father was a furniture salesman. Grew up in New York, born in Paris, but came to New York when he was two, and volunteered after Pearl Harbor. Met my mom in Youngstown and working at a USO, corresponded all through the war, like so many people did. Got released on Thanksgiving Day, 1945. Came to New York. Met my mom. They got married. Brother came along. There were no jobs in New York after a couple of years, so my father came to move to Youngstown with my mom, where there was a guy. My mom worked as a bookkeeper for a furniture store. My father became a furniture salesman. The owner of the furniture store was a ardent vegetarian and was a member of the American Natural Hygiene Society, which is what the National Health Association was called way back when. Two of the leaders of that organization were a Dr. Herbert Shelton and a Dr. Gerald Benish, and they were both speaking in Cleveland. My father had some health issues. My mother had some health issues. The owner of the store, this guy said, "Hey, Max, there's a better way. Why don't you come listen to this lecture?" Came listen to that lecture, and it rang a bell with them. Why some people can go all through kind of health problems and still not change. They get lung cancer and they still go back to smoking. They have a heart attack, they still go back to drinking. Why do some people have those health crises and then re-examine? Or why do some people just kind of open-minded to better ideas and I don't know what the secret sauce of that is, but fortunately to my parents, what they heard resonated, made sense that how you live you can control your health destiny, the elements of health, fresh air, exercise, things like that. So they got a juice machine, they got a slant board, they opened their windows for fresh air, became vegetarians. This is like 1950, somewhere around there. And like everybody, it's a journey. Nobody becomes vegan overnight. Nobody becomes these things, but it was a path for them. But I came along at an opportune time where they were able to kind of start me off right. And so they did that. And obviously, they overcame their health issues. My father had polio, my mother had thyroid problems, and my brother had bronchial asthma. And they all overcame them. And so to them, okay, it worked, it made sense. My father was also a voracious reader of everything from Karl Marx to art, literature, everything. So, the more he got exposed to this, the more sense it made to him. And and my mother, she was a pretty open-minded lady too. So they became involved in the American Natural Hygiene Society, started bringing me to conventions, what we call them back then in the 50s and 60s. And it's been part of our life the whole time. My mother passed away in her sleep at 97. My father died, hit his head when he was 86, going up to go to the bathroom. So I have pretty good longevity, and I think I have pretty good longevity. I'm going to be 75 this year, and I don't feel it. I don't look it. I think when I play with my grandkids, they don't think I'm 75.
Yeah, it really comes down to
Anyway,
how you yeah, it really comes down to how you feel. Do your parents attribute their health recoveries largely to the adoption of this natural
completely,
hygiene? They do.
completely,
Yeah.
completely, 100%.
And so what were some of the health challenges? You said you faced some health challenges and then
So
you also
my only
recovered.
health challenge is that I mean, again, what happens when you're born and in your first couple of years, you can only report what people tell you. I mean, I don't remember these times, but what the story is that my parents tell me is that I was born in 1951, and two of the heretical things that my parents did when I was born, being health zealots back then, is the two big things they didn't want to do. Is they didn't want to vaccinate my brother and I. I have an older brother, 3 years older, and they didn't want to give us dairy. It was kind of vegan. Milk was for animals, not for babies and things like that. So that was, to even family members, was a pretty heretical thing to do.
Mhm.
They got a lot of pressure even from their family, calling the health department, that they were neglecting my brother and I, raising them, not giving them vaccinations that could save their life, not giving them milk. My mother wanted to breastfeed. Um, so the story goes, my mother was a much more emotional type person. Had some thyroid issues that was part of her health problem. Um, was trying to breastfeed me. I was born this 8 pound, 5 ounce, incredibly healthy kid, supposedly. At least when I look at the pictures, I look pretty good. And her milk spoiled, so they say. And the milk spoiled trying to nurse me. It spoiled. So I developed a condition after I was born, 8 pounds, 5 ounces. 6 months later, I was 6 pounds, 5 ounces. I was like a bag of bones, so they tell me. So they tell me my parents took me to Dr. Benish, who was in Cleveland at that time, one of our founding doctors of our organization. And Dr. Benish, who was a chiropractor, but kind of holistic healing guy, had the brilliant observation to my parents that the problem that you have, Ruth, is that you're so nervous and your stress, and Marky's feeling your stress, and that's what it is. You're trying to hold him and nurse him. You need somebody calm that can hold him and help out and all that. You got to get Ruth out of that environment, get Mark out of that, and me out of that environment. They found somebody that could hold me. They found some raw goat's milk to help me transition a little bit, I guess. Long story short, I came through that health crisis. Coming through that health crisis and being introduced to bananas and raw foods and things that were easy on my system. Whatever it is, I came through that. To my parents, you're not going to mess with a good thing. So somebody who's got given up for dead to come back to the living to get a second chance. My parents thought, well, I'm not going to mess with a good thing. That's why they raised me on raw foods. Interestingly enough, they weren't even on raw foods. My older brother wasn't on raw foods. They weren't vegan. They were vegetarian, but they weren't even vegan. My mother had an ice cream maker at home and things like that. But for me, they weren't going to mess with a good thing. That's the story they tell me.
Yeah.
And they never messed with that. They never tinkered with what was working. I got through that crisis. I got my weight back. I got my health back. I got everything back. And I was a happy-go-lucky kid. And again, I mean, as I look back, I find it kind of extraordinary. I never met anybody like me. I never met anybody growing up in this whole health movement that was raised like me on raw fruits and vegetables, let alone in a family where even the rest of the family didn't eat that way. I mean, it's really, I mean, I'm an exhibit G of something, but it worked, and I guess I would say that I was raised this way because it's the only thing I knew. Kind of grew up maybe as a religion. This is the religion. So my parents loved me. They told me this was the right thing for me. The only thing I knew, it wasn't a willpower issue growing up. This is what I like. I like a salad every day. I like, avocados and tomatoes, and I never missed things that I never missed, like pizza, and baked potatoes, and hamburgers, and all the rest, ice cream. I never knew it. The, I guess what is most interesting to me is that as I look back, and I stayed raw foods for 32 and a half years, but I'm still pretty clean. I still don't eat pizza. I still don't even vegan, even veggie pizza. I don't eat. I guess I look at what my parents did back then was everything that I've learned in the whole food plant based health movement that I've grown up in has validated what my parents did as this kind of article of faith in raising me. Everything we've learned about whole food plant based health is that health does result from healthful living. And the less processed foods you have, the more whole foods you have, the more less unadulterated foods are really the keys to your longevity. And I don't know that I'm going to live to be like Methuselah, for 2,000 years, but I think that I've got a pretty good health foundation, and I continue to make good choices. What I put on my plate every day and how I live, how much sleep I get, was right. And everything we've learned that salt, oil, sugar, processed foods, ultra processed foods, those are all the causes of the epidemic of degenerative diseases we have that I think I've been largely spared from. I was not vaccinated, and I had chicken pox, I had measles, mumps, and all that, but everybody does. In the old days, you got them, and then you develop your natural immunity, and then you don't have it anymore. Maybe I'll die of a brain tumor tomorrow, but I don't think so. And I think that if I develop one, my body will probably deal with it better than most people. I thought that way during COVID. I didn't have the COVID vaccine, and I tested once. I tested positive once on a rapid test. Whether I had COVID or not, I don't know. I didn't lose my taste or my smell or any of those traditional things, but
Mm.
I believed and continue to believe today that had I contracted COVID, or if I did have COVID, I would handle it just like I'd handle any other flu. My body would, we're there's a guy, Robert Mendelsohn, a very interesting MD, who wrote a book some years ago called Confessions of a Medical Heretic. He was a really interesting guy that was more against everything than I don't know what he was for, but he was against all kinds of medical orthodox practices, appendectomies that they do for everybody, and tonsillectomies and all these things, and C-sections and all. They railed against all that. But he said something pretty thoughtful one time. He said that when God made us, if you believe in God, he didn't make too many mistakes. We are made to survive. We are made that if we get sick, your body, if you give it rest and fluids, and rest, you get better. You do get better if you live well and if you follow, what I consider the kind of the laws of life, the laws of nature, and all that. That's been my life. And again, what's most rewarding to me is that people that are now my friends and I'm a little older than they are, but Dr. Joel Furman, Caldwell Esselstyn, T. Colin Campbell, all these legends of the whole food plant-based health movement, they've validated my life. Everything they have found about how you should live, how you should eat, how much rest you should get, adequate sunshine, things like that. That's me.
Yeah, regarding the what I call routine childhood illnesses like measles, mumps, chickenpox, and then coming down with, say, the flu. In our space, I think what Mike and I have learned in this journey in the terrain space, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my feeling is that Shelton's teachings align with this, is that these are just expressions of detoxification. That when we have these illnesses, these are normal, these are routine. On the other side of it is greater health. They're not to be they're not to be feared. The symptoms aren't to be suppressed. That this is just a part of living.
Core natural hygiene. That is core Dr. Shelton. There's a book written by one of Dr. Shelton's, one of the guys that influenced heavily Dr. Shelton was Dr. John Tilden. And he wrote a book called Toxemia and Toxemia Explained. And that was the principle of it. I mean, I don't know how much science, but it was an observation that he had that when you get sick, it's your body does have buildup of these toxins, and you get yourself in a period of physiological rest. The body has its inherent ability to be self-healing, self-correcting. That's how it works. An animal gets sick. What do? They curl up in a corner and they sleep. They usually don't even drink water, maybe a little bit of water, but they just rest because the body has a way of healing. Maybe the most unique thing about the National Health Association is that the founders of it, Dr. Shelton, Dr. William Esser, Dr. Gerald Benish, these people, they, in addition to recognizing the natural hygiene diet, which is again today our whole food plant-based diet, we call it, is they recognize the role of medically supervised water fasting, and that water fasting, the theory of water fasting that they championed, was that when you put your body in a period of physiological rest, you conserve energy, and you marshal the inherent healing powers of the body. That's what it does. You cut your finger, you cut your wrist, and you put a Band-Aid on it. It isn't the Band-Aid that heals anything. It just kind of allows the body, protects it, and allows the body to do what the body does. Mm-hmm. That is, you're right. That is core natural hygiene. This principle of toxemia, whether the science of toxemia, this buildup of toxins and the cleansing that takes place, whether there's actually a scientific validity to that concept, it does work. I mean, what the mechanisms are maybe not fully understood, but we do know that the body has these ability to heal itself. Conventionally, what they tell people when you're sick, go drink plenty of fluids and rest, and that's natural hygiene. It really is. It's at its core, and
and, and I think
we still champion that.
when we start to drill down, we had a woman on last week, Maria Manazza, and she's fairly steeped in natural hygiene. She's also plant exclusive, a real proponent of this way of, I'm going to say eating. Let's just focus on the eating part because I think it's so crucial. And when we start to drill down and get into the nuance of it, I think what we're saying, what I'm learning or what I'm observing, trying to simplify this conversation, we're all going to be exposed, regardless of how we live our life. If we're living in Western society, we're all going to be exposed to certain toxins. They're in the air. They're off gassing from our furniture, from our walls. We're going to be inhaling it from the air out there. We all have to go through that process of detoxing that. If we can limit the toxins or the foods that we're not supposed to eat, the processed foods, the sugars, the oils, the salts, like you're saying, if we can limit the intake, that's one less thing we have to worry about. Number one, that's one less thing that our body has to worry about expelling or dealing with. But it's also, if you're putting the right things in, your body is just better optimized to detox or deal with that first category, the things that we can't sort of help but be exposed to.
Agree 100%. And that's the choices that I choose to make every day about what kind of toxic chemicals I have around the house. Trying to use organic, trying to use biodegradable things. Again, every exposure is an exposure, and unfortunately, that I think that we are bombarded today with so much more than my parents and my grandparents and your grandparents ever had to deal with. That it's tougher. It's tougher. I mean, I think that we are with these forever chemicals that we're being exposed to. There's an interview in the next issue of Health Science magazine. I have an interview with Dr. Hanna Kalova, who's the director of clinical research at PCRM. And Dr. Kalova talks about, again, these microplastics that are everywhere, that are being found in brain tissue and in mother's milk and everywhere. I mean, okay, all right, we're going to be vegan, we're going to go organic, we're going to have non-toxic home, and yet here it is. I mean, we've inherited it, we've breathed it in. So, I mean, again, we're going to crawl in a hole and or go in a hermetically sealed bubble or something. No, we're not going to do that. But I agree with you 100%. We're going to make those choices every day to limit those exposures to the degree to which we can. And I was just my wife and I, one of the most unique things that the NHA does these days is that we've developed this thing called plant-based travel, where we arrange, our organization has partnered with different travel companies, and we go to some amazing locations around the world, and we ensure that your meals are not only whole food, plant-based, vegan, but SOS-free. And there's a lot of people that really care about that, like I do. And so we go to all these, and we just came back. We were just flying back from Africa. We were in Botswana, which I highly recommend to you guys, by the way. If you've never done Botswana, it's one of the most pristine places in the world. It's one of the most stable democracies in the world, and you just don't. I mean, it's just like a different world. It's the way you dream life would be, and you're in the kingdom of animals and lions and all that in the world. But my point was, on the way back, we get on the plane from Mon to Cape Town, and a lady says, "Oh, we're going to spray the plane for I don't know what something, but don't worry about it. It's non-toxic. But if you want to cover your mouth, you can cover your mouth." And I mean, you're captive prisoner. But the point is that yeah, you're stuck. Where the hell are you going to go? I'm on the plane. She tells me after we're on the plane, right? That's the world in which we're in. Obviously, we're bombarded with stuff every day. And so we just make choices every day. By the way, I just want to add something. When you mentioned about these kind of fundamental principles, one of the great privileges that I have as president of the National Health Association and editor of our magazine, Health Science, that we produce quarterly, is I do interviews for each issue, kind of like you do podcasts with great people. I do interviews with the leading voices of our health movement. Neil Barnard, uh, uh, Michael Greger, Michael Clapper, people like that. Anyway, I interviewed Dean Ornish, one of the legends of this whole, reversing heart disease, one of the first guys to really make it big as an MD, challenging conventional medical approaches to reversing heart disease. And he's got a program that's now approved by Medicare. But anyway, when I interviewed Dean a few years ago, I said, as you look back at your 40 years, is there any overarching perspective that you have of what you've learned in 40 years of, as a practicing MD in that? And to me, it was right out of Natural Hygiene, because he said what has struck me the most after all these years is the universality of cause and the universality of solution to health problems. Whether you've developed diabetes or cancer or multiple sclerosis the cause is almost universally the same. It's your diet and lifestyle. And the solution is almost universally the same. That God bless that you can reverse. Now, most recently, he's even talking about dementia, that adopting a whole food plant-based diet, that's his latest study, that you really can have a positive effect in not just stopping the onset, but actually reversing it. To me, that was pure natural hygiene. Right, that's right. The cause of disease is universal for most care. I mean, you can get exposed to dioxin and things like that, but even that's a variation on the theme. It's an exposure to, a lifestyle exposure. To me, that was pretty profound. And it is what natural hygiene says. The causes of disease are the same solutions for the maintenance of health. It's your diet and lifestyle.
Mark,
That's
just
been my life.
just to flash back to your parents, they sound like pretty extraordinary people on the front edge of this paradigm. Do you know if they themselves were vaccinated? I mean, the ailments you
They were.
mentioned,
They were.
polio, thyroid,
Everybody
asthma.
was.
Right, right.
Everybody
Polio,
was in those
asthma,
days.
these are common vaccine side effects. So, do you know if that was on there? Was that top of mind for them at the time? Is that what helped them choose to not vaccinate you and your brother?
I think they just bought into the premise of natural hygiene immunity is built, not bought. You build immunity, you don't inject immunity. I mean, I think there was also a reluctance, I think within natural hygiene, that there is a reluctance to tinker with the delicate immune system we have. It's an interesting observation of mine. Again, having been an observer of not just the health food industry that my father was a big part of for his career, but the whole food plant-based health movement that I've watched, is that when COVID came around, it was a very interesting. Um, it was a very interesting. Um, I want to use test of how people looked at health. So even within the whole food plant-based health movement, most of the lifestyle medicine world of the whole food plant-based, the doctors of this movement, almost without exception, they took the shot, recommended people get the COVID shot, the COVID vaccine. I can tick them down: Michael Greger, Neil Barnard, John McDougall, Michael Clapper. Get down the line. The only people that didn't, I wouldn't say the only people that didn't, but within the lifestyle medicine, whole food, plant-based health movement, the people that did not do that were Dr. Joel Fuhrman, came out of the natural hygiene movement, of which we are, um, Dr. Stefan Esser, Dr. Frank Sabatino, people in our health movement that just looked at it differently. Looked at it, not only was this emergency use authorization and all the questions that people legitimately had about that, but there was a philosophic side to this, that you don't tinker with the immune system, you don't introduce these kind of toxins into your body. Immunity is built, not bought. That was the premise. So they didn't, and it was a tough choice to make. It was politically, publicly, a very risky thing to do, because lots of people were dying, and it was a very unpopular position to take, for at least for a while, not to get the shot. For myself, not getting the shot was even, I'm president of the National Health Association. People took this very seriously, but it was one of those kind of what I would call like a demarcation line between lifestyle medicine people and natural hygiene people. All these people came out of this kind of where there was a philosophic basis for how they look at the world. And that was one. Thank God we're through that era, because it was really getting tough. I had a daughter that worked and lived in New York, and I'm a Broadway show. Was a theater major in college. I love theater. I love going to. I couldn't go to a show in New York without a vaccine card. I couldn't go to a restaurant in New York with my daughter without a vaccine card. I couldn't, when we started natural and plant-based travel, I couldn't go to Alaska, our first couple of trips right after COVID. Couldn't go to Alaska and Baja and Galapagos Islands, bucket list places for me, because I didn't have the shot in the arm. This was it was a tough place for people like me. A tough place for lots of people. People lost their jobs, people lost all kinds of things. But I'm only using this as just kind of a reference point that again, how you even view the practice of medicine, lifestyle medicine. It was a demarc. T. Colin Campbell, the most interesting. I'm sure you know T. Colin Campbell wrote the China Study and all that. A legendary guy, and he, because he was really more rooted in the science of all this, he and his wife in their 80s didn't get the shot, and we're proud of the fact that they didn't get the shot. But he also railed against his brothers in the lifestyle medicine movement, who revered him and who he revered them, for taking the shot in the arm. It was just
Yeah.
a
Yeah, but
tough thing.
you're preaching to the choir here for sure.
Sure.
It's interesting in the terrain space. What Ben and I have come to understand is that the very notion of contagion is even being challenged the way that we've traditionally understood it. And I think it becomes relevant because, like you say, and like we've adopted, like if you live a lifestyle forward, what we say a terrain forward lifestyle, that I don't need, health doesn't get injected. I don't need to lean on some industry to provide health. The problem with that is if you don't live this lifestyle, if you are overweight, if you do have diabetes, it leaves open the opportunity to say like, well, because I'm not a quote healthy person, now I need to turn to this industry that's supposedly going to provide health, which I would argue couldn't be more damaging to your health. So it's like
You know,
it's a double insult.
it was a difficult issue. So I have a son-in-law who is a disabled vet from Desert Storm and all that. Got a boatload of health problems. I mean, just everything in the world.
Yeah.
And of course, my family respected my right not to have the shot, not to have the COVID shot, right? But the theory was that, my God, the issue wasn't just your own health, but the community risk that you're imposing to everybody else. Because we know that statistically, we know that 90% of the people that died from COVID, that died from contracting COVID, had comorbidities. They were obese. They had other kinds of health compromising problems, and this is just kind of what put them over the edge. But I understood the argument, and it was a difficult argument at the time. But you're right, it does challenge, if you come out of the natural hygiene movement where I am, it does challenge that notion: do germs and viruses cause disease? Is it the condition of the host or the risk of the contagion? I am of that older school that now I believe that germs and viruses probably play an associated cause with that, but it's the health of the host that is at the core. But I, I guess I don't have a perfect answer for that because, yeah, for people that are really health compromised, even if it's a simple flu that they're around or a simple cough and they contracted that cough. I'm not a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I don't even play a doctor on TV, as they say. But I worry about that. I think about that. It doesn't change the way I live, but I do have that empathy or concern, and I'll respect, at the very least, the belief of people that would be at risk that I shouldn't be around them during that period of vulnerability.
Sure.
Okay,
Well, because we're compassionate people, absolutely, and that is,
I think
as
so.
Ben and I have pointed out many times over the many episodes, that this is a story that you can't escape in our culture. The story of contagion, the story of mom got sick, so sister got sick, so brother got sick. But what we're coming to find out, and we don't necessarily have the answers, actually, far from it. And even really respected people that we've talked to, they kind of throw up their hands like we don't actually have all the answers. But what we do, what we can say is that we're not bought into this model as it's been pitched to us. We can't say what the model is, but we think there's more to the story. So a lot of, well, I think the bottom line is it's that mind virus. It's the belief that you're going to get sick that's sometimes the biggest boogeyman of all.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that, but is there a psychosomatic side to it? Maybe. I don't know. That might be a little oversimplistic from my vantage point. I just think that regardless of the answer to that question, the healthier that we all choose to live, that's what's going to make that question academic. If my son-in-law with all his health problems would just, you know, give it a month of a good diet, but he won't. That's his tough luck. I still love him. I love my daughter and all that, but that's what I think. That's the comfort I have. I am convinced, as is Caldwell Esselstyn and all these legends of our movement, all of these degenerative diseases that we have need not be. Christy Funk, the leading breast cancer lady in the world, 80% of breast cancer just need not be. So the question of mammograms or full mastectomies versus lumpectomies, all these kind of things that you get into, it need not be. We don't. Breasts aren't made to develop cancer. It's diet and lifestyle that does it, and you can take one condition after the other, except for perhaps, again, when you get exposed to dioxin or some of these incredible toxins, or you're born with type A diabetes and you can't manufacture insulin. All right, but that's not the overwhelming majority of humanity. Health is the natural outcome of healthy. The tagline for the National Health Association that we've always had is health results from healthful living. It does. And what's healthful living? Whole food, plant-based diet, exercise, rest, keeping your emotions in check, fresh air, pure water, limit your exposures.
Mark, one of the questions we asked Maria, and I want to ask you, and I want to dive into this a little bit, is I think we agree that optimizing the terrain, optimizing your nutrition and your lifestyle is a key to health. The disagreement that we see in this space is how to optimize your nutrition. And you've in the natural hygiene approach is, as you said, plant-based, plant exclusive, raw. But we see
I
folk
wouldn't say raw.
okay,
No,
maybe not
I would
necessarily
say
raw.
that when I grew up, raw was cooked foods were dead food. Raw. I mean, science has advanced
Yeah.
a
But
lot, and
but
I don't think anybody. I mean, there are some people that still believe that a raw food diet is the best thing you could do, and I a lot of raw food. I'm not against a raw food diet. I still am predominantly up, but uh, but
but
I would just clarify that I don't
okay,
think it's a raw
fair.
food diet is the
Fair
natural hygiene diet.
clarification, and I appreciate you jumping in. We see folks who and there's a real emergence or resurgence in carnivore eating, what's called ancestral eating. So a lot of animal fats, raw egg or egg, but like pasture raised chickens, raw milk. And these folks swear by this diet and will also have their testimonies, their own experiences to back it up, that they were able to reverse or eliminate their own health issues. What do you say to those folks who swear by that approach? And what is the science that you are encountering, that like the definitive science, the most compelling science that you see to support natural hygiene and the plant-based approach?
I guess I think that the people that are attracted to this, I would say it's more of a philosophy or an ism that what trying to get back to our ancestral diet. Well, none of us were around in those days, for God's sakes. And what was their longevity in those days? Saying, all right, you and people. I'm not an anthropologist, but I mean, if you grew up in the desert, you ate what was around in the desert. If you grew up in Alaska, you ate what was around in Alaska. But I think the science is beyond dispute today, from the Adventist health studies that were done to the work of Neil Barnard and Joel Furman and people like that, that a whole food plant-based diet, again with limit, is the best shot. Can people? I hear people all the time. There's the Gerson method, right? That you go on raw juices, you go on the juice diet, and you reverse these. I think people do recover in all kinds of diets. Why? In my opinion, again, I'm not the doctor, I'm the lawyer, I'm just an observer of this movement, but I think they get better in spite of what they do. It's because of what they're not doing. Most of the people that adopt the grapefruit diet or this diet, except the Atkins diet, people that kill themselves on these high fat, crazy things, um, most of them, they're going to get better because of it. You hear a debate within our movement of how much nuts you should have or no nuts. The Esselstyn kind of people, no nuts. How much avocado, no avocado. I mean, these are all just, I think, I think almost distinctions without a difference. Most people get well and get better as long as they're not bombarding themselves with drugs and treatments and the curative world in which we're all in. Yeah, can you if do you have to grow up on a raw food diet like I did? Is that the key to my longevity? I don't know. I had a great upbringing. I had great parents that loved me unqualified. I mean, I didn't live in a polluted environment. Lots of things could account for why I am. I think it's very dangerous to project an individual's experience to everybody else. I think we have now the benefit of 30, 40 years, not just when parents grew up, this was a matter of faith. They would go to Dr. Shelton's health school, and if you had a health condition and you went on a 30-day fast or a 40-day supervised water fast and you got better, that was great. I mean, you did that. They had the observation that people got well. They didn't have the science behind it. But now Dr. Alan Goldhammer at the Juvenile Health Center, they're validating this across thousands of patients doing this in the same thing in diet and lifestyle business. I think it is beyond dispute. Again, I look at the common denominators of Dean Ornish, really thought leaders in this: Dean Ornish, Caldwell Esselstyn, Michael Greger, Michael Clapper, Alan Goldhammer. These people, they're universal conclusions of treating thousands of helping thousands of patients regain their health. What are the common denominators? And the common denominator is a whole food plant-based diet. And when they take them off their drugs and their medications and things like that, people get well. I think the same can apply to people that adopt the variation on the theme, mostly because of what they're not doing rather than what they are doing. I mean, we know, we both know too. We all know, all three of us know the people that have lived in their 80s and smoked their whole life. And they're still sharp. George Bush's dad jumped out of a plane in his 90s. God bless him. Man, so, not everybody's so blessed, but people are. Caldwell Esselstyn, again, one of my favorite guys, said that, most of us, the human body is an amazing thing. And that most of us have a warranty period. That we can go into our 40s and 50s and do a lot of shit to our bodies. Ice cream, smoke, drink, drugs, all these kinds of things. And most of us, the body is an amazing thing. And it can compartmentalize, can get rid of, can hide it, can store it, do whatever it is. But usually with most people, the 40s and 50s, the warranty runs out. And if you haven't been taking care of yourself, your warranty's out. And that's when you're going to have health problems. But, unfortunately, more and more people are getting younger and younger. Juvenile diabetes and cancer is younger and younger. But for most of us, you can do a lot. So I think, again, maybe I got a little bit far afield from your question, but I think people can adopt a keto diet. They can adopt this kind. They can go to the Mediterranean diet. They can do all these sort of things. Do well and do reasonably well. That doesn't change my conclusion of my 70-some years and 50 years as an adult, really making my own decisions in these things, of what's settled science and what isn't. And I think it's settled science. There's a little bit of we always get a kick out of, and I get a kick out of in the movement. Olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. There's the secret tonic that's going to make. Well, I think there's almost universal agreement that oil is calorie dense, nutritionally deficient, leads to all kinds of health problems, and should be avoided. Almost everybody in the lifestyle medicine movement agrees with that. Okay, you'll find a few devotees to olive oil that, to me, it's kind of like people like to hear good news about their bad habits and to support it, and they'll do that. But there's a universal agreement. There's pretty universal agreement that added sugar has no place in the diet. There's pretty universal agreement that getting excess sodium, getting excess salt, which we're bombarded with, contributes to high blood pressure and that. Pretty universal agreement. Does that mean that if I go out and I put some, at a restaurant, I add some olive oil because there's no dressing that I like, and I add some olive oil in my salad, I'm going to die tomorrow? No, of course not. But the universals are there. And I think that, again, can people get well on a variety of diets? Yes, they can. Is it because of the diet? Maybe. My suspicion is, my non-medical suspicion is that the human body is an amazing thing and can do well as long as you relatively leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the omission over the addition. I'm with you there, and I think both
Omission over
Mike
the
and I,
addition. That's
yeah,
well put.
I think Mike and I would both agree with you. That said, do you think that there is one species appropriate diet, and that it is the plant-based diet?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. For human species, yeah. I mean, I was just in Africa watching lions feast on a zebra.
Yeah, different story.
No, different thing. But for human beings, yeah, I think the science is settled. I think, again, my life, I think there is a philosophic side that fortunately underlies all this that also makes sense. That this is a system, this way of eating and diet and living is not just good for our health, it's good for our planet, it's good for the soil, it's good for everything. It's a diet and lifestyle for all reasons. I think also that there's a book, one of the influential books on me when I was a kid. There's a book by a guy named Jeffrey Rudd, who was one of the founding presidents of the International Vegetarian Society in the UK, something like that. And he wrote a book called Why Kill for Food? Very interesting little paperback. You can probably find it on Amazon. And he just was, writing very much about why when we kill for food, does if we are engaged in that kind of behavior, aside from the Upton Sinclair, the jungle, and seeing the brutalizing behavior, does it make us less sensitive as human beings when we see nothing wrong with slaughtering a deer or slaughtering a cow or something? Are we just less sensitive? No. Does it mean that every person that hunts is going to become a Jeffrey Dahmer? No. But I do think we will be a better, more sensitive, more humane world as a species. We'll have more understanding if we valued the critters around us, we valued our environment. So I think that underlies the natural hygiene health program. There's a quote by a guy. One of the guys that influenced Dr. Shelton was a guy named Russell Thacker Troll. He was probably a revolutionary MD in the 1870s, a prolific writer. Delivered a address. If you want to pick up something cool one day, Google the True Healing Art, where he delivered an address to the Smithsonian Institution challenging traditional medical practice. This is in the 18 something. And Troll was a prolific writer about this, but he had a quote that is in the back of the book, a little book we did on the history of the natural hygiene movement called The Greatest Health Discovery. And he has a quote in the beginning that I've always liked that just, to me, says it well. He said, "The system which we endorse and practice is true, in harmony with nature, in accordance with the laws of the vital organism, correct in science, sound in philosophy, in agreement with common sense, successful in results, and a blessing to mankind." I think that's true. I think if you adopt a whole food, plant-based diet and lifestyle, you try to go and live in harmony with nature, you garden organically and with the soil, and it's right. Not only does it work in science, but it's sound in philosophy, and it is a blessing on all of us.
Mm.
So I don't think the issue, I don't think it is, I think what's so universal about the diet and lifestyle that I live, that I hope to model for other people, is that it works on so many levels. It's bigger than just the diet. I like to say, someone quotes me often, I just said in offhand, Chuck Carroll, the Exam Room podcast, a great guy from PCRM. He interviewed me at our annual health conference last year. And right at the end, he was kind of asking me to encapsulate what I thought of all this. And I said, well, I think that life is more than fruits and vegetables. Not that I don't mean that fruits and vegetables aren't great. It's the center of my life. But life is bigger than that. If that's all you care about is fruits and vegetables, you're going to be a pretty neurotic person. I'm more interested in theater and social justice and sports and living all part of life. Life is more than just fruits and vegetables. And I've met so many people in my life that they become an ism. They become a veganism, vegetarianism, whatever it is. It's like defines their life how they eat. Life is bigger than that. Good Lord, this is just a means to an end for me. Be part of the rest of life. Be able to wrestle on the ground with my grandchildren. That's what this diet and lifestyle gives me.
Yeah.
At 70, almost 75.
Mark, you've mentioned water fasting a couple of times. Is that something you've tried yourself?
I have
Yeah.
a couple of times. I mean, I did it as a kid. I did it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Once I did it in 1973. I was in undergraduate school as a theater major. It was the anti-Vietnam War era, and I was just not sleeping, and I felt some tingling in my legs. And I was concerned about it. And I always wanted to visit Dr. Shelton's famous health school in San Antonio, Texas. So he said, all right, why don't I go and take a fast at Dr. Shelton's health school? So I went there and I spent like 10 days at Dr. Shelton's health school to just do that. And I got out of there because I didn't like the environment, and it was like country twang music was the only thing on the radio, and it's kind of nutty, but I did it then. And then I fasted a couple other times, an extended fast. One time I had a polyp in my nose and thought I would try to resolve that. My wife has done some water fasting. I do believe that if I had a significant health issue, that's certainly what I would do. I would give the body that physiological rest the best chance to recoup. And I've seen enough people that have gone through the True North Health Center in Santa Rosa and other places around the world. It's remarkable. Not that there's something magic about water, or something magical about, the care, but it's marshaling the body's ability to heal itself. We all know if I get sick right now, if I'm on overload and I'm getting a head cold or something, I'll just stop eating for a day or two. I'll just go on juices or something like that. Again, not because I think there's something magical in the juice, but it's just I'm giving my body a break. That's the core of natural hygiene. The core of water fasting, as I always understood it, was that the body every day is involved in assimilation, digestion, circulation, elimination. That all takes energy. And when your body is spared of that, you're in a state of physiological rest, not just fasting and not eating, but resting. Your body will take that inherent nerve energy and put it where it's supposed to be. That's how we're made to heal. So I've done it. I can only say that I hate it because I'm a very active kind of guy, and the idea of me just sitting around doing nothing and reflecting and reading a book, I'm too involved with life to do that. So that's why I try to stay healthy and get my right amount of sleep and all that every day, so I don't have to get sick and go on a fast because I don't like it.
Right.
But I believe I respect its power enormously, and I've observed it my whole professional life.
Yeah, I would
Power
agree
of
with
it.
that. What's the longest one you've ever done?
I did 17 days once.
Yeah.
17 days, yeah. Which I didn't have the body weight to spare, but I did it. But anyway, yeah, I was very young. I mean, it's just like in my 20s, something like that. But I think, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, again, True North Health Center, probably the world's expert on water fasting today. So, he has a theory that, or not just a theory, but a practice that he and his wife Jennifer and that every Thanksgiving for a week, they fast. And they fast only because, and he has a theory that, again, not scientific, but he believes that when you undertake a water fast, it's like rebooting your computer. It really does kind of reboot your body systems and all that. Is it something you can quantify like you can with a laptop? No, but he experiences it happen. And I think there is some preventative uh, value in that practice. Just not just, again, stopping the world and all the chaos that we're all in, but actually physiologically to give your body a physiological rest. That's the term. I think most people talk about fasting. It's like water fasting or just deprivation. They lose sight of the concept of fasting as a physiological rest. That's what Dr. Shelton and all its adherents really talk about. Fasting, water fasting, and still working, or water fasting and exercise is not going to work because the whole principle is you're expending energy that you want to preserve for healing. At least that's the theory that I understand. And again, philosophically, like I said, there's a philosophic side, and it kind of makes sense to me. And thank God things make sense, that you put healthy soil, builds healthy plants, builds healthy people. I'm glad that there's a philosophic side that underlies the diet and lifestyle that I lead. It is better for the world. It is better for the planet.
I have to say I feel a little called out, Mark, because I've done a couple water fasts, never a 17-day, but I did an 8-day, and I definitely was not resting. I was
No,
definitely
that's
trying
right.
to still exercise.
Right. It's not a fast. That's not a fast.
I
I
know.
mean, it is a fast, and I'm sure there's probably, again, I'm not the doctor, but my guess would be there's still some advantages,
Sure.
but you're certainly not going to have the significant advantage that you can have of physiological if you're fasting for a reason.
Yes.
If you're fasting because of a condition or you just really want to do a detox or something like that, then do it the right way.
Yep. Yep. No,
Not do it that way. Otherwise, you're just you're selling yourself short.
I appreciate your explanation of what a fast is, and that phrase physiological rest, I think is really what hit it home for me. Now I feel extra called to do one properly. Let me ask you this. When you did your 17-day, what were the big difference? What was the difference that you noticed? What was that experience like for you? That's a long time to
Well,
go. And then what was the difference on the other side?
so it's maybe not a good example because it was so long ago, and I was really physiologically depleted at the time. So I slept during most of it. I was just my body really was just beaten down. I'd been living on a bicycle and doing whatever I did. So I went in for one purpose, but I think I was just physiologically depleted.
Yeah.
And so I really slept through it. So I can't tell you that I woke up with clearer eyes, and a sharper mind, and like I'd just taken Prevagen for 3 years. No, it wasn't. one thing like that. But my observation has been that people that 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 do fast, they do your mind is sharper. You do things with clarity and all that, and um, I think that's a result. It's my observation that's a result of watching a lot of people that go through water fasting for a variety of conditions. Most people think of water fasting as just for obesity. Well, all right, you're going to starve yourself down to weight, but most people that go to the True North Health Center go with significant health problems, of which obesity can be one of them. And you have the benefit of that. But that's the nice thing about water fasting is that you may go in for one reason because you got a tumor on your breast, or you got type 2 diabetes, and you're trying to reset your insulin levels and all that, and it'll work. I mean, it works remarkably well. Um, but you're also going to have all these other dividends because, as Dean Ornish put it to me, it's a universal approach. It's a universal approach, no matter what your condition is. It's an approach. It's a diet and lifestyle and a health recovery treatment for all reasons.
Yeah.
Pays dividends.
Mark, for someone who's new to the concept of natural hygiene and even whole food plant-based lifestyle, what first steps would you recommend? And also, what are some of those common pitfalls that they should avoid?
I think, well, first of all, I guess I would say that I'm not a proselytizer about this lifestyle. If people ask me what I eat and why I eat what I do, I'll talk to them all day long. If they don't ask me, I'll talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, or I'll talk about my trip to Africa that I just did, or my upcoming trip to Antarctica. I mean, that's because I don't think you can proselytize. What I do see is that obviously if people would just, I watch people go on these like 7-day detoxes, and in my observation, they never work. You need at least 30, 60, 90 days of giving this thing a shot for your body to reset, a little bit for your taste to reset. Um, so I think that's a pitfall, that people try something for 7 days and it doesn't work, or they'll get indigestion, and they'll blame the peanuts rather than the fact that their body's just resetting. So I think that on an elemental level, if people with allergies and with hay fever and those kind of things, they've just cut out dairy. Give dairy a shot. Take that out of your diet for 30 days and see what the hell happens. Introducing more fresh foods into your diet, 30 days and things like that. See what happens. It's tough. We are, what Alan Goldhammer wrote a book called The Pleasure Trap. We are bombarded. We are bombarded everywhere. From you drive down the street to the fast food restaurants to commercials on TV. Our social structure in this society is Thanksgiving. We just came through Thanksgiving, where it's a celebration of 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 indulgence and garbage, from my standpoint. Garbage. I mean, it's really tough. We socialize in the whole thing, and you go to a ball game. Part of the thing of the ball game is nachos and cheese and all that. If you're not doing that, I mean, I love going to the games. I take my own peanuts and some seedless grapes and my own bottled water, so I don't have to buy their $6 water. But it is tough. It's really tough. It's tough. It's amazing to me. I just did an interview with Tom Campbell, Dr. Tom Campbell, T. Colin Campbell's son. And he had that same skepticism that it is so, unless you take people out of that environment and go to the True North Health Center or really do something at Dr. Furman's retreat or something like that for 30, 60, 90 days to escape that environment, it's really tough. It's tough to change. The pleasure trap, we're so used to what foods are supposed to taste like, with added salt, oil, sugar. People don't know what an ear of corn tastes like without butter and salt and all. They don't. So it's tough. So I guess, again, come back to your question, I think that most common thing that people, the irritating people have, they have allergies, and they're wheezing and they're coughing and they're all taking antacids. And they would just try cutting out dairy and some wheat. It's amazing how simple something like that can be, in my observation, to giving people some real relief and feeling less dependent on medication. But we've gotten to a point where everybody thinks this is just normal. you're diabetic. That's okay. You just take insulin.
Yeah.
That's okay. You get thing. You take an antacid. You take that because that's just normal. I don't think it's normal, but for a
Yeah.
lot of people, and so they'd rather just go back to what they're eating. My wife's dad was 86 years old and started developing dementia, right? And I remember he came to the doctor, and even the local doctor said, "Well, is there anything I can do to slow this down or something?" Yeah, well, you could change your diet and get a little exercise and eat what Wanda's eating. Well, I ain't doing that.
Right.
Just because they won't. And coming back to something I mentioned earlier, what is that secret sauce that allows some people to see beyond their conditioning and their training and their pressures and to adopt another way? I don't know what that is. If I could bottle it, we'd make $1 million to why people could just make a fundamental change for their health. Some people do, and that's why in the National Health Association, that's why I'm so excited. For those that are open and willing to change, we're here to help and support you with meal plans and travel. Can you imagine living this life? I mean, I never would have dreamed in my lifetime to be able to go we're going to Antarctica, and we're taking 46 people to Antarctica January 4th. Can you imagine going to Antarctica and being able to eat whole food, plant-based, fruits and vegetables, SOS-free? We did it in Iceland in this last fall. I can't imagine. Iceland grows nothing.
Yeah.
They grow nothing in Iceland. They have a greenhouse with some cherry tomatoes that they can make. We support that lifestyle. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I
Going
think
back to
I
what you
think
said,
well, I
I
think
don't know. That's what I would recommend. Simply small things for people small changes first,
yeah.
and see
Yeah.
if it helps you.
Yeah,
But I
again,
don't have any
it's
illusions that people are just going to whole hog make the change, unless, as I say, you go through a health crisis
right.
that scares some people.
Right. Yeah, oftentimes, yes, that can be the catalyst is a crisis, or they're staring the death in the face. And as you said, it really was starting with elimination or omission, right? Cut out dairy, cut out wheat, see how that goes. It's not that you have to pile
Fast
up your plate
foods,
with fruit and
fast
vegetables.
foods,
Yeah, yeah, cut
fast
that out.
foods. When
Yeah,
I give talks, one of the things I talk to them about salt, oil, added salt, oil, and sugar. You go to, if you're health conscious, and a lot of people really want to make good decisions. Whole Foods markets. I mean, I live at Whole Foods because of the produce department, and the nuts and dates, and 90% of the other stuff I don't eat. But people go to Whole Foods because they think at Whole Foods that they're getting whole, healthiest, preservative free. 90% of the things there I don't eat or couldn't eat or wouldn't eat. But I use the observation a lot. If you go to Whole Foods or any grocery store and you want peanut butter, and most people think, I want to have organic peanut butter, right? I want to get the least processed thing. I don't want Skippy. I don't want Jif. I want real peanut butter, right? So if you go to Whole Foods, right, and you look in their peanut butter department and you want just peanuts, you better look on your label carefully, because there's like one brand of their 365 organic peanut butter that's just peanuts.
yeah,
All the rest is with palm, and it'll even say organic. It'll say low sugar, whatever it is. But you really got to look. And if you take sodium, is an amazing thing to me. Vegetable broth. You want to use vegetable broth instead of making your own to do healthy cooking, right? Saute in vegetable broth instead of oil. You want to make those good choices. Go look at almost any carton of vegetable broth, even the ones that say low sodium. A typical organic vegetable broth will have 600 milligrams of sodium, and the calorie content, the calorie uses, you're supposed to match them, your calorie to your sodium, right? That's kind of like the standards you want to use in terms of healthy offering. Be like 600 grams per serving in that thing.
yeah,
So you can imagine how that all builds up.
yeah,
Same thing with peanut butter. Same thing. You really got to look. You're bombarded with. So I guess I tell people, read labels more carefully, because a lot of people aren't. They go to Whole Foods because they think they really do want to make better choices in baby food, in for their kids, or whatever they are. Just read the labels and realize what you're doing. If you want peanut butter, if you don't have the one where you can just kind of grind your own fresh ground and just get it right there, read the label. So that's what I tell people. Read the label, try to cut out your fast foods. Certainly limit dairy, because dairy is at the root of. Neil Barnard wrote the book The Cheese Trap about how it's in everything, dairy and cheese, and there's estrogen compounds and all that. That's what the root. So that's what I tell people.
Got it.
Try some little things first.
Got it. Great advice. Mark, we're at the hour. We don't want to keep you much longer, but we do have to ask you the question that we ask all our guests at the end of every episode. And that is, what are your non-negotiables, the daily habits that you do to tend to your terrain?
My non-negotiables are pretty clear. They have not changed. I do not eat processed foods. I do not. I'm from a diet standpoint. Okay, from a diet standpoint, I do not compromise. Salt, oil, and sugar. If there are added salt, oil, and sugar in something, I don't eat it. And if I'm at a restaurant, I may go hungry on a particular day. If the only baked potato they got is salted and or cooked in oil, I won't eat it. And I usually don't take a chance. I bring something with me if I go. It's easier than it used to be to do that. But they're non-negotiable for me. I believe that the diet that I've chosen, that I was started upon my parents without my choice, but then which I've adopted consciously, is the diet that gives me the best control of my health destiny. And I'm not going to fuck with that, pardon my French. I want to be there. I want to be there for my grand. I look at my in-laws on the other. We have our first two grandkids. They're 2 and 4, almost 2 and 4. And I look at the in-laws on the other side, and they got all kinds of help. They can't watch the kids overnight. They couldn't watch them. They couldn't roll on the floor with them. That's not who I want to be. This is the best time of my life. Traveling with my wife, hiking in Iceland, and now we're going to Antarctica. To be able to do that at virtually 75, that's pretty good. So that's why those things are non-negotiable. The other non-negotiable things is I go to the gym religiously. I'm leaving when we get off here. It's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I go religiously 3 days a week, and I do some cardio, but I do weights and all that because I think that is a key to health and longevity as well as we get older. Sleep, it's probably the one thing that I keep working on better. I'm a night owl. I tend to do lots of stuff, but I try to get my 6-7 hours of sleep. And I do try, I'm a believer in time restricted eating. I try to be done eating by 6. I think it's a healthier way to go. So those are, the diet is the most non-negotiable for me because it's defined my life. But I also believe it implicitly that this is the key to my longevity. So it is non-negotiable. When it came to COVID, it was non-negotiable for the shot. I've never had one in my life. I would never do that to myself personally. It was non-negotiable. If it meant I couldn't travel to Alaska with my wife, I didn't travel to Alaska with my wife, even though I wanted the Galapagos Islands, so I wanted to go, because you have certain non-negotiable things, and that's where they are for me.
Yeah, I respect that. Mark, what are some of your go-to book recommendations for the listener who wants to explore this topic?
I think if somebody wanted to find, the best book on this diet, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, as one of my buddies, wrote a book called Eat for Life. He originally wrote the book Eat to Live, which was a great title, best-selling book. His later book with more science that came out a couple of years ago called Eat for Life. It's kind of like the biggest picture of the whole diet and lifestyle picture. I think Dr. Alan Goldhammer wrote a book called The Pleasure Trap 20-some years ago that is he was on to some people are talking about it a lot more now about how the foods we eat really kind of mess with your brain and stimulate dopamine, why we want more chocolate, why we want all these these habit forming things. It's a really good book. The Pleasure Trap is just eye opening. So that's a big thing for me. If you want to be a Mark Huberman guru, go Google Why Kill for Food by Jeffrey Rudd, and it's just a cute little book about kind of the bigger view about what are we doing in this world, why are we killing for food, and what impact does that have on people's sensitivity in the world and all that. Not that, as I say, that everybody who hunts is an axe murderer or going to turn into a Jeffrey Dahmer, but we will be more sensitive the less we engage in that kind of brutalizing behavior.
Yeah.
So there's one. And Dr. Alan Goldhammer just wrote a book called Can Fasting Save Your Life? That is The original book on fasting was written by Dr. Herbert Shelton called Fasting Can Save Your Life back in the 60s that the NHA published. He's published one now that kind of gives the first kind of modern scientific explanation of the value of medically supervised water fasting. And it's a pretty profound book that I think everybody should read to kind of understand the difference, as you were saying, between fasting and physiologically resting. Big deal, big difference.
Yeah.
And uh, the profound impact in reversing chronic conditions that a physiological rest can have under medical supervision for a whole host of problems. So those are three that but the nice thing about what's maybe changed in my 70 some years is that the number of great exponents there are for our health movement are so much larger. I mean, again, the Neil Barnards and Michael Gregors, and these are incredible exponents for the value of this diet and lifestyle. They just weren't around in my parents' era. People like Dr. Shelton and Dr. Esser, and these were almost evangelists for this lifestyle. That they just believed it and they taught it, and like Elmer Gantry, you got to follow it and that's what you want to do. But now you got people that are quite credentialed, schooled, educated, thoughtful, and in my opinion, non demagoguing. They're thoughtful, they're persuasive, they're articulate. They're people you want to listen to. And I often cite Neil Barnard of PCRM because veganism often gets associated with PETA and animal activism and all that, but he's one that is a very prominent vegan, as am I, but it's a soft sell. It's appealing to our better angels in the way in how he talks about it. That's how I kind of more by example than by preaching.
Yep.
But so that's maybe my greatest satisfaction is that as I've gotten older, what I did by what I was raised on almost as like a religion is now validated by science and with some incredibly powerful exponents of this way of living. It gives credibility to my life.
Yeah. Well, we're really thankful for the opportunity to share some of these names and learnings with the folks out there. Mark, last question. Where can the listener learn more about you and your work?
Sure. So there is a website. Our organization, we're a 501c3. We've been around since 1948. I like to say we're the oldest organization on the planet that has been advocating a whole food, plant-based diet and lifestyle and the benefits of water fasting longer than anybody else. We have a website called healthscience.org that's loaded with really good information. Membership is still only $35 a year, although it's going to go up shortly to I think 49. But it includes a quarterly magazine that we publish called Health Science that is very unique in the health movement. If you go to a health food store and you pick up a health magazine, it's nothing but advertising for the latest protein powders or miracle cures or that. Health Science is a 40-page magazine that has no advertising in it. Just interviews with the leading voices of our health movement that I do in each issue, but also articles by, the legends of our movement and on various health conditions, testimonials, recipes. There's a recipe section, but it's not a recipe magazine. It's got, some of the leading authors of SOS-free cooking. Shows you, that you could do it, it can taste good, and be healthy. So that magazine comes out quarterly. It's a real magazine. It comes in your mailbox. In this era of everything being digital, it's there. But if people want to go green, they can get it. They can get it digitally as well. But at healthscience.org, I always like to make an offer, by the way, that if people that tune in, and if they want to look before they leap, if they send me an email at mhuberman@healthscience.org, I'll send them an electronic copy of the magazine so they can see what it's like. If they like it and they join, I'll send them a print copy, and then they'll be on tack to get the magazine quarterly. But it's it's maybe the most personally rewarding thing I get because I get to interact with and meet some of the great people of our time, some of the really brilliant people. But the magazine's really good. It looks good. It's high quality magazine. You'll find $35 for a real magazine.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty proud of it. It's pretty good.
Amazing. We'll put the links in the show notes, and that's a tremendously generous offer of you that you throw out there to the people.
Sure.
Mark Huberman, thank you so much for joining us on the Terrain Theory podcast. This has been a pleasure.
My pleasure.